Margaret Chen sat on the cold park bench. Her hands shook as she held a piece of cardboard. The words "Will play piano for food" were written on it in black marker. The letters were a bit messy because her hands would not stop shaking. 6 months ago, her life was very different. She lived in a nice apartment with her husband David. She played piano for the big city orchestra. People came from far away to hear her play. She wore beautiful dresses and her hands were soft and clean. Everyone knew her name. Now she looked down at those same hands. They were dirty and had small cuts on them. Her nails were broken. These were the same hands that once played for thousands of people. The same hands that once made beautiful music. It all started when David got sick. He was her husband for 15 years. One day he felt tired. The next day he could not get out of bed. The doctors said it was his heart. They tried to fix it, but David was very sick. Margaret spent every day at the hospital. She held David's hand and talked to him. She told him about the music she would play when he got better. She promised they would travel to Paris like they always planned. But David did not get better. He died on a Tuesday morning when the sun was just coming up. Margaret was holding his hand when it happened. She felt his hand go cold in hers. The funeral cost a lot of money. The hospital bills were even more. Margaret had some savings, but it was not enough. She had to sell her car first. Then she sold her jewelry. Then she sold David's things. It hurt to sell his books and his clothes, but she needed the money. The orchestra was kind at first. They said she could take time off to feel better. But weeks went by and Margaret could not play. Every time she sat at the piano, she started to cry. The music reminded her of David. He used to sit and listen to her practice at home. Margaret stopped eating much. She stopped sleeping well. Some days she forgot to brush her hair or change her clothes. Her friends tried to help, but she pushed them away. She wanted to be alone with her sadness. After 2 months, the orchestra had to find someone else to play her parts. They said she could come back when she felt ready. But Margaret was not getting ready. She was getting worse. The bills kept coming. Electric bill, gas bill, rent. Margaret opened them but could not understand the numbers. Everything felt like it was happening to someone else. She felt like she was watching her life from far away. One day, men came to her apartment. They said she had to leave. She had not paid rent for 3 months. Margaret packed her things in 2 bags. She did not know where to go. She tried staying with her sister for a week. But her sister had 3 kids and a small house. Margaret felt like she was in the way. She left one morning before anyone woke up. Margaret found a cheap hotel room. She paid for 1 week. Then she had no more money. The hotel manager felt sorry for her. He let her stay 2 more days for free. But then she had to go. That was how Margaret ended up sleeping in the park. The first night was the worst. She was scared and cold. She had never slept outside before. Every sound made her jump. She thought about David and wished he was there to protect her. During the day, Margaret walked around the city. She saw other homeless people. Some talked to themselves. Some asked people for money. Margaret was too proud to ask for money at first. But after 3 days without food, pride did not matter anymore. She made a sign that said, "Please help." People walked by without looking at her. Some people looked but then looked away quickly. A few people gave her coins. She bought a small sandwich and ate it slowly to make it last. 1 week passed, then 2 weeks. Margaret's clothes got dirty. Her hair became messy. She started to smell bad because she could not shower. People moved away from her on the street. Margaret thought about her piano every day. She missed the feel of the keys under her fingers. She missed making music. Music was the only thing that ever made sense to her. It was the only thing she was really good at. She remembered when she was 7 years old. Her mother took her to piano lessons. The teacher said Margaret had a gift. By the time she was 10, Margaret could play pieces that took other kids years to learn. Margaret won contests when she was young. She got scholarships to music school. She worked hard every day. Piano was not just what she did. It was who she was. Now, sitting on the park bench, Margaret wondered if she would ever play again. Maybe people forgot about her. Maybe she forgot how to play. Maybe her gift was gone forever. But then she thought about David. He always said her music could heal people. He said when she played, people forgot their troubles for a while. Maybe that was what she needed to do. Maybe she needed to play again, not for herself, but for other people. Margaret looked at her sign again. We'll play piano for food. It was a simple idea. She could not ask people for money for nothing, but she could offer them something beautiful. She could offer them music. She had seen a piano in the big shopping center downtown. It was in the middle of the food court where people ate lunch. Maybe they would let her play. Maybe people would give her money if she made good music. Margaret stood up from the bench. Her legs were stiff from sitting so long. She folded her sign carefully and put it in her bag. Then she started walking toward the shopping center. She did not know what would happen. Maybe security would make her leave. Maybe people would laugh at her. Maybe no one would listen, but she had to try. Music was all she had left. Music was the only way she knew how to ask for help. As Margaret walked through the city streets, she started to feel something she had not felt in months. Hope. It was just a tiny bit of hope, but it was there. Maybe, just maybe, her story was not over yet. Margaret walked into the shopping center. The warm air hit her face. It felt good after being outside in the cold. The place was busy with people shopping and eating lunch. Everyone looked clean and happy. She looked around for the piano. There it was, right in the middle of the food court. It was a beautiful black piano that shined under the bright lights. Margaret's heart started beating faster. She had not seen a real piano in months. Margaret walked closer to the piano. People were sitting at tables around it eating their food. Some kids were running around playing games. No one was paying attention to the piano. She took out her cardboard sign and held it in her hands. We'll play piano for food. Margaret took a deep breath. She was about to ask if she could play when she heard laughing behind her. Look at that crazy lady, said a teenage boy. He was pointing at Margaret. She thinks she can play piano. Margaret turned around. 5 teenagers were looking at her and laughing. They all had nice clothes and expensive phones. The boy who spoke first had his phone out. He was taking pictures of Margaret. Oh my God, look at her sign, said a girl with long blonde hair. We'll play piano for food. That's so sad and funny. Another boy started making a video with his phone. Hey everyone, check out this homeless lady who thinks she's a piano player, he said to his phone. This is going to be hilarious. Margaret felt her face get hot. She wanted to run away, but she needed food. She had not eaten anything since yesterday morning. More people started to notice what was happening. They looked at Margaret and then at the teenagers. Some people started whispering to each other. She probably doesn't even know how to play, said the blonde girl. She just wants money. Yeah, homeless people always lie, said another teenager. My mom says they spend money on drugs anyway. Margaret felt tears start to come to her eyes. These kids did not know her story. They did not know that she used to be famous. They just saw a dirty homeless woman. A security guard walked over. He was an older man with gray hair and kind eyes. His name tag said, Frank. He looked tired, like he had seen this kind of thing before. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but you can't ask for money here, Frank said to Margaret. His voice was not mean, but it was firm. Margaret looked up at him. Please, she said. I'm not asking for money for nothing. I really can play piano. I just want to earn enough for a small meal. The teenagers laughed even louder. This is too good, said the boy with the phone. She really thinks she can play. Security is going to kick her out, said the blonde girl. This is going to get so many views online. Frank looked at Margaret more carefully. There was something about her that was different from other homeless people he had to deal with. She stood up straight. She spoke clearly. Her eyes looked sad but not crazy. Ma'am, even if you can play, this is private property, Frank said. I have to ask you to leave. Wait, said an old woman who was eating lunch nearby. What's the harm in letting her try? If she can really play, that would be nice to hear. Yeah, let her play, said a man with his young daughter. Emma loves piano music, but the teenagers were getting louder. Don't let her play, said the boy with the phone. She's just going to bang on the keys and make noise. She probably has some disease, said the blonde girl. She shouldn't even be touching the piano. More people started gathering around. Some wanted to see what would happen. Others felt sorry for Margaret. A few agreed with the teenagers that she should leave. Margaret felt like everyone was staring at her. Her hands were shaking even more now. Part of her wanted to run away and hide, but she thought about David. He always told her to be brave. Please, Margaret said to Frank, just give me 5 minutes. If people don't like it, I'll leave right away. I promise. Frank looked around at all the people watching. Some of them seemed curious to hear what would happen. The mall manager would not like it if he caused a big scene. 5 minutes, Frank said finally. But if people complain, you have to leave immediately. The teenagers groaned. This is stupid, said the boy with the phone. She's going to embarrass herself. Keep recording, said the blonde girl. When she fails, it's going to be so funny. Margaret walked to the piano bench. Her legs felt weak. She had not played in front of people for so long. What if she forgot how to play? What if her hands would not work right? She sat down on the bench and put her sign on the floor next to her. The piano bench felt familiar, like an old friend. Margaret lifted the cover over the keys. They were beautiful white and black keys, all in perfect order. Play Mary Had a Little Lamb, shouted one of the teenagers. That's probably all you know. Margaret ignored them. She put her hands over the keys but did not touch them yet. She closed her eyes and thought about David. She thought about all the beautiful music she used to make. She thought about why she started playing piano in the first place. When she was little, Margaret's grandmother was very sick. Margaret would play piano for her every day. Her grandmother said the music made the pain go away. That was when Margaret learned that music could heal people. Margaret opened her eyes. She looked at all the people watching her. Some looked curious. Some looked mean. Some looked sorry for her. But they were all listening. I'm going to play something beautiful for you, Margaret said softly. Music is a gift. I want to share it with you. The teenagers rolled their eyes. Just start playing already, said the boy with the phone. Margaret took one more deep breath. Then she put her fingers on the keys and started to play. Margaret's fingers touched the piano keys. The first note rang out clear and beautiful. It was like magic filling the air. The sound was so pure and perfect that everyone stopped what they were doing. She was playing a piece by Chopin. It was called Ballade No. 1. Margaret had played this piece hundreds of times before. It was one of her favorites. The music started soft and gentle like a whisper. The teenagers stopped laughing. The boy with the phone kept recording, but now his mouth was open in surprise. The blonde girl stood very still, staring at Margaret's hands on the keys. Margaret's fingers moved like they were dancing. Even though her hands looked rough and dirty, they knew exactly where to go. Each note was perfect. The music flowed like water from a beautiful stream. People in the food court stopped eating. A mother was feeding her baby, but she forgot about the spoon in her hand. A businessman was talking on his phone, but he hung up to listen. Kids who were running around playing stopped and came closer to the piano. The music got a little louder and more exciting. Margaret's whole body moved with the rhythm. She forgot about being hungry. She forgot about being homeless. She forgot about the people staring at her. There was only the music. Frank, the security guard, felt something strange in his chest. The music reminded him of his wife. She used to love classical music. She would make him go to concerts even though he did not want to. After she died, he never listened to that kind of music again. But now, hearing Margaret play, he remembered how beautiful it could be. An old man sitting near the piano started to cry. The music reminded him of his mother. She used to play piano when he was a little boy. He had not thought about that in years. Now the memories came flooding back. Margaret's fingers moved faster now. The music was building to something bigger. It was like a story being told without words. First it was sad, then hopeful, then exciting, then sad again. Everyone listening could feel the emotions in the music. A little girl tugged on her father's shirt. "Daddy, how does she make the piano sound like that?" she whispered. Her father did not know what to say. He had never heard anyone play piano like this. It was better than concerts he had paid a lot of money to see. The teenagers were completely quiet now. The boy who had been making fun of Margaret lowered his phone. He felt embarrassed about the mean things he had said. The music was so beautiful that it made him feel small and ashamed. Margaret played a very difficult part of the piece. Her left hand played deep, rich notes while her right hand played a melody that soared high above. Most people would need to look at music sheets to play something this hard, but Margaret knew it by heart. More people started coming over from other parts of the shopping center. They heard the beautiful music and wanted to see where it was coming from. Soon there was a crowd of 30 people standing around the piano. A woman who worked at one of the stores came out to see what was happening. She expected to find some kind of problem. Instead, she found a homeless woman playing the most beautiful music she had ever heard. The music got very quiet again. Margaret played so softly that people had to hold their breath to hear. It was like she was telling a secret. Then slowly, the music got louder and more powerful again. A teenage girl in the crowd started recording with her phone too. But she was not recording to make fun of Margaret. She wanted to save this beautiful moment. She had never heard music like this before. Margaret's eyes were still closed as she played. She was lost in the music. In her mind, she was not in a shopping center anymore. She was in a beautiful concert hall. David was sitting in the front row, smiling at her. She was wearing her favorite blue dress. Her hands were clean and soft. The music reached its most powerful part. Margaret's whole body was involved now. Her shoulders moved with the rhythm. Her feet pressed the pedals to make the sound richer. Every part of her was making music. People in the crowd looked at each other with amazement. They could not believe what they were hearing. This was not just good music. This was incredible music. This was the kind of music that famous people played on television. Frank, the security guard, realized he had a problem. He had told Margaret she could play for 5 minutes. But it had already been longer than that. The crowd was getting bigger. People were stopping their shopping to listen. His boss might get angry, but Frank could not bring himself to stop Margaret. The music was too beautiful. He had never heard anything like it. He decided to let her finish the piece. A man in the crowd recognized the music. He had heard this exact piece played by famous pianists, but Margaret was playing it better than any of them. Her version had more emotion, more feeling. It made him want to cry and cheer at the same time. Margaret played the final part of the piece. The music got very dramatic and exciting. Her fingers flew across the keys so fast they were almost a blur, but every note was still perfect. Then suddenly Margaret played the last note. The sound hung in the air for a moment. Then there was complete silence. Margaret opened her eyes and looked up. She was surprised to see so many people standing around her. They were all staring at her with their mouths open. No one was moving or talking. For a moment, Margaret worried that she had played badly. Maybe people did not like it. Maybe she should run away. Then one person started clapping. Then another. Then everyone was clapping at the same time. The sound was loud and happy. People were smiling and some were wiping tears from their eyes. Margaret could not believe it. She had not heard applause like this in months. It felt like coming back to life. The clapping went on for a long time. Margaret sat at the piano not knowing what to do. She had forgotten how good it felt when people loved her music. Tears started to run down her face, but they were happy tears. "Play another one," called out a woman in the crowd. "Please." "Yes, more music," said someone else. Margaret looked around at all the faces. They were all looking at her with kindness now. Even the teenagers who had been mean to her were clapping. The boy with the phone looked ashamed of himself. Frank, the security guard, walked over to Margaret. She thought he was going to tell her to leave. Her 5 minutes were over. But instead he leaned down and whispered, "That was the most beautiful thing I ever heard. Please play one more." Margaret smiled at him. It was the first real smile she had made in months. She turned back to the piano and put her hands on the keys again. This time she started playing Rachmaninoff's Piano Concerto No. 2. This was an even harder piece to play. It needed 2 hands to play parts that sounded like a whole orchestra. Margaret had played this with real orchestras many times before. As soon as she started playing, more people came running over. Word was spreading through the shopping center that something amazing was happening. People left their stores to come listen. Shoppers put down what they were buying and came to see. Margaret's fingers danced across the keys. This piece was full of emotion. It told a story of love and loss and hope. Margaret thought about David as she played. She thought about their first date, their wedding day, and the last time she held his hand. A woman in the crowd started to sob. The music was so beautiful and sad that it made her think of her own husband who had died. She had not cried about it yet, but the music helped her let the feelings out. Children in the crowd stopped running around. They stood very still and listened. Even though they were young, they could feel that something special was happening. A little boy asked his mother, "Why does the music make my heart feel funny?" The crowd was getting bigger and bigger. There were now 50 people standing around the piano. Some people could not get close enough to see Margaret, but they could hear the beautiful music. People started taking out their phones to record, but they were not recording to make fun of Margaret anymore. They wanted to save this beautiful moment. They wanted to show their friends and family what they had seen. Margaret played a very difficult part where her hands had to move very fast. The notes sounded like raindrops falling. Then they sounded like thunder. Then they sounded like birds singing. It was amazing how she could make the piano sound like so many different things. A man in a suit pushed through the crowd. He worked for a newspaper. He had heard about the homeless woman playing piano and came to see if it was a good story. He expected to find someone playing simple songs badly. Instead, he found a master musician playing like she was in a famous concert hall. The newspaper man started taking notes on his phone. This was not just a good story. This was an incredible story. A homeless woman playing classical music better than most professional musicians. His editor would love this. Margaret played a part of the song that was very soft and gentle. People leaned in to hear better. Some closed their eyes to listen more carefully. The music was so peaceful that it made everyone feel calm and happy. An old woman in the crowd remembered when she was young. Her mother used to play piano for her before bed. The music Margaret was playing sounded just like those memories. It made her feel like a little girl again. Margaret's hands moved to the lower keys now. The sound was deep and rich like a man's voice singing. Then her right hand played high notes that sounded like angels. Together, they made harmony that was perfect. More people kept coming. The crowd was now almost 100 people. Some stood on chairs to see better. Others held their children up high so they could see the woman making the beautiful music. Frank, the security guard, was supposed to control crowds and keep order. But he did not want to break up this crowd. These people were not causing trouble. They were just listening to beautiful music. He decided to let it continue. A woman who taught music at a school pushed through the crowd. She wanted to see who was playing. When she saw Margaret, she could not believe her eyes. This homeless woman was playing better than any of her music students, better than most of her teacher friends. Margaret played the most exciting part of the piece now. The music was loud and powerful. It sounded like a storm or a great adventure. Her whole body moved with the music. She leaned forward and backward. Her feet worked the pedals to make the sound fuller. People in the crowd started moving with the music too. Some swayed back and forth. Others tapped their feet. A few people conducted with their hands like they were leading an orchestra. The teenagers who had been mean to Margaret were now in the front of the crowd. They watched her hands with amazement. The blonde girl felt terrible about the things she had said. She wanted to say sorry, but she did not know how. Margaret played a part that sounded like a conversation between two people. Her left hand played one person's part, and her right hand played the other person's part. It was like watching a play, but with music instead of words. A little girl broke away from her mother and walked right up to the piano. She stood there watching Margaret's fingers move. She had never seen anything so wonderful. Her mother came to get her, but Margaret smiled at the little girl and kept playing. The music built to its biggest, most exciting part. Margaret's fingers flew across the keys. The sound filled the whole shopping center. People 3 stores away could hear it. Some of them came running to see what was making such beautiful noise. Then Margaret played the ending. It was soft and peaceful, like going to sleep after a wonderful day. The last note hung in the air like a beautiful smell. When the music stopped, nobody moved for a moment. They were all still lost in the beauty of what they had heard. Then the clapping started again, even louder than before. The clapping was so loud that it echoed through the whole shopping center. People were cheering and whistling. Some people were wiping tears from their eyes. Margaret had never felt so happy and sad at the same time. Dr. Amanda Foster was pushing through the crowd. She was a music teacher at the big university in town. She had been shopping when she heard the piano music. At first, she thought it was a recording playing over the speakers, but as she got closer, she realized someone was actually playing live. The music was too good to be just anyone playing. This person was a real professional. Dr. Foster finally made it to the front of the crowd. She looked at Margaret sitting at the piano. Something about the way Margaret played seemed familiar. The style, the feeling, the way her hands moved. Dr. Foster had seen this before. "My God," Dr. Foster whispered to the woman standing next to her. "I think I know who that is." The woman looked at her with curiosity. "You know her?" Dr. Foster stared at Margaret more carefully. The dirty clothes and messy hair made it hard to be sure. But the way Margaret played those pieces, there was only one person who played exactly like that. "I think that's Margaret Chen." Dr. Foster said quietly. She was supposed to play with the London Symphony Orchestra next month. She's one of the most famous piano players in the world. The woman looked surprised. That homeless lady is famous? Dr. Foster remembered reading about Margaret in the music magazines. Margaret Chen was a legend. She had played in the best concert halls all over the world. Her recordings sold millions of copies. Music students everywhere tried to play like her. But then Margaret had disappeared. About 6 months ago, she stopped showing up for concerts. Nobody knew where she went. Some people said she was sick. Others said she was taking a break. But nobody knew the truth. Now Dr. Foster was looking at the truth. Margaret Chen was homeless. Frank, the security guard, walked over to Dr. Foster. He had heard her talking and wanted to know more. "Excuse me," Frank said. "Did you say you know who this lady is?" Dr. Foster nodded. "I'm pretty sure that's Margaret Chen. She's a world-famous piano player. My wife and I saw her play at Carnegie Hall 3 years ago." Frank's eyes got wide. Carnegie Hall was the most famous concert hall in America. Only the very best musicians played there. "Are you sure?" Frank asked. "The way she plays, it's exactly like Margaret Chen's style," Dr. Foster said. "I would recognize it anywhere. But what is she doing here? And why does she look—" Dr. Foster did not finish her sentence. She did not want to say homeless out loud where Margaret might hear. Frank remembered something. His wife had dragged him to see symphony concerts sometimes. He did not usually pay attention to the names of the musicians, but he remembered seeing a poster once with an Asian woman's picture on it. The name on the poster was Margaret Chen. "Wait here," Frank said to Dr. Foster. He pulled out his phone and searched for Margaret Chen pianist. Pictures came up right away. Frank compared the pictures on his phone to Margaret sitting at the piano. It was the same person. The Margaret in the photos looked clean and elegant, wearing beautiful clothes. But the face was the same. The hands were the same. It was definitely her. Frank showed his phone to Dr. Foster. "Look," he said. Dr. Foster looked at the photos and then at Margaret. "That's her," she said with certainty. "That's definitely Margaret Chen." Meanwhile, Margaret had started playing another piece. This one was by Mozart. It was lighter and happier than the other pieces. The crowd was still gathered around, listening with amazement. Dr. Foster pulled out her own phone. She found a video online of Margaret Chen playing this exact same Mozart piece in a concert hall 2 years ago. She held the phone so Frank could see. They watched the video and listened to Margaret playing live at the same time. It was exactly the same style, the same feeling, the same perfect technique. "We have to help her," Dr. Foster said. "She shouldn't be living on the streets. She's a treasure." Frank nodded, but he did not know what to do. How do you help someone who used to be famous but is now homeless? In the crowd, other people were starting to figure it out too. A man who loved classical music had taken a photo of Margaret with his phone. He was comparing it to pictures he found online. "Hey," he said to his friend, "I think this lady is really famous. Look at these pictures." His friend looked at the photos on the phone and then at Margaret. "That's impossible," he said. "Famous people don't become homeless." But the more they compared the photos, the more sure they became. This homeless woman was really Margaret Chen, one of the greatest piano players alive. A woman near the back of the crowd overheard them talking. She was a music lover too. She pulled out her phone and started searching for information about Margaret Chen. She found articles about Margaret's concerts and awards. She found videos of Margaret playing with famous orchestras. But she also found newer articles from a few months ago. They said Margaret Chen had disappeared from the music world and canceled all upcoming performances. The woman shared this information with people around her. Soon whispers were spreading through the crowd. "She's really famous. She played with the London Symphony. She's won all kinds of awards." What happened to her? Margaret finished the Mozart piece and looked up at the crowd. She saw people whispering and pointing at their phones. She wondered what they were talking about. A brave teenager stepped forward. It was the boy who had been recording her earlier to make fun of her. Now he looked embarrassed and sorry. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "are you Margaret Chen, the famous piano player?" Margaret's heart stopped. She had hoped nobody would recognize her. She was embarrassed about how she looked. She was ashamed that people would see her like this. Margaret stood up from the piano bench. Her legs felt shaky. Everyone in the crowd was staring at her, waiting for her answer. Margaret started to speak, but her voice came out as a whisper. She cleared her throat and tried again. "Yes," she said simply. "I am Margaret Chen," the crowd gasped. Even though some people had suspected it, hearing her say it out loud was shocking. Dr. Foster pushed through the crowd and walked right up to Margaret. "Ms. Chen," she said with respect, "I'm Dr. Amanda Foster from the university. I've admired your music for years. What happened? How can we help you?" Margaret looked at Dr. Foster's kind face. For months, Margaret had been invisible. People looked through her like she was not there. Now someone was really seeing her. "I lost everything," Margaret said simply. "My husband died. Then I lost my apartment. Then I lost myself." The crowd was completely quiet, listening to every word. While Margaret was talking to Dr. Foster, something was happening that she did not know about. The teenager who had first recorded her was looking at his phone with wide eyes. His name was Jake. When he first saw Margaret, he wanted to make a funny video to share with his friends. He posted the video with a mean caption that said, "Homeless lady thinks she can play piano, watch her fail." But the video did not show Margaret failing. It showed her playing the most beautiful music Jake had ever heard. And people online were noticing. In just 1 hour, the video had been shared 50 times, then 100 times, then 500 times. People kept sharing it with new captions like, "This will blow your mind" and "Most beautiful piano playing ever." Jake's friend Emma grabbed his arm. "Look at this," she said, showing him her phone. Someone else posted a video of the same lady. It already has 2,000 views. Emma had recorded Margaret playing the Rachmaninoff piece. She posted it with the caption, "Homeless woman plays like an angel. This gave me chills." Jake felt sick to his stomach. He looked at his original video with the mean caption. Hundreds of people had commented on it. But they were not laughing at Margaret. They were angry at him. "This is disgusting," one comment said. "How dare you make fun of this talented woman?" "Delete this video right now," said another comment. "This woman is a gift and you're being cruel." "You should be ashamed of yourself," said a third comment. Jake quickly changed his caption. He deleted the mean words and wrote, "Amazing homeless woman plays incredible piano music," but people had already seen the original caption. Screenshots of his mean words were being shared along with the video. Meanwhile, people who knew about classical music were recognizing Margaret in the videos. They started commenting with information about who she really was. "This is Margaret Chen," wrote one person. "She's world famous. I saw her play at Lincoln Center." "OMG, that's Margaret Chen," wrote another. "She disappeared months ago. What happened to her?" "This is one of the greatest pianists alive," wrote someone else. "How is she homeless?" The videos were spreading to different social media sites. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Everyone was sharing the videos of Margaret playing piano. A music blogger with 50,000 followers shared Emma's video. "This homeless woman plays better than most concert pianists," she wrote. "We need to find out who she is and help her." A famous musician saw the video and shared it with his 2 million followers. "This is what real music sounds like," he wrote. "Raw emotion and perfect technique. Whoever this woman is, she's incredible." By evening, Margaret's videos had been viewed over 100,000 times. Homeless Pianist was trending on social media. People all over the country were watching and sharing the videos. News websites started picking up the story. "Homeless woman's amazing piano performance goes viral" was the headline on several news sites. But Margaret did not know about any of this. She was still at the shopping center talking to Dr. Foster and the crowd that had gathered around her. Dr. Foster had given Margaret her business card. "Please call me," she said. "The university would love to have you teach music classes. We can help you get back on your feet." Frank, the security guard, had collected money from people in the crowd. Everyone wanted to give Margaret something. They felt bad that such a talented person was homeless. "Here," Frank said, handing Margaret a bag full of cash. "People wanted you to have this. There's almost $300 here." Margaret stared at the money. It was more than she had seen in months. "I can't take this," she said. "I didn't do anything special." "You gave us something beautiful," said an old woman in the crowd. "You made us all feel something wonderful. That's worth much more than money." Margaret started to cry again. For months she had felt worthless. She felt like she had nothing to offer the world. But these people were telling her that her music mattered. As the crowd started to break up, people kept coming up to Margaret. They wanted to shake her hand or give her their phone numbers. They offered her jobs, places to stay, and help finding apartments. Margaret felt overwhelmed by all the kindness. She was not used to people being nice to her anymore. Jake walked up to Margaret. He looked nervous and ashamed. "Ma'am," he said quietly, "I'm really sorry about what I said earlier. I was wrong. You're amazing." Margaret looked at the teenager. She remembered how mean he had been. But she also saw that he was just a kid who had made a mistake. "It's okay," Margaret said kindly. "We all make mistakes. Thank you for saying sorry." Jake felt relief wash over him. "I posted a video of you playing," he said. "I wrote something mean at first, but I changed it. The video is getting shared a lot. People love your music." Margaret did not understand what Jake meant about the video being shared. She did not know much about social media. Dr. Foster overheard Jake talking. "What do you mean the video is being shared?" she asked. Jake showed Dr. Foster his phone. The video now had 20,000 views and hundreds of comments. Dr. Foster gasped. "Margaret," she said, "look at this. You're becoming famous all over again." Margaret looked at the phone screen. She saw the video of herself playing piano. She saw all the comments from people saying nice things about her music. "I don't understand," Margaret said. "What does this mean?" "It means people all over the country are seeing your music," Dr. Foster explained. "They're sharing the videos with their friends. Soon millions of people might see this." Margaret felt scared and excited at the same time. She had been invisible for so long. Now people everywhere were watching her. Emma showed Margaret her phone too. "I recorded you playing the other song," she said. "My video is being shared too. People are calling you an angel." Margaret read some of the comments on Emma's video. People were writing things like, "This made me cry," and "Most beautiful music I ever heard," and "We need to help this woman." "Look at this comment," Emma said, pointing to her screen. Someone wrote, "I'm a music teacher and this woman plays better than anyone I know. She must have trained for years. How did she become homeless?" Margaret realized that her story was spreading along with her music. People were not just hearing her play. They were learning that she used to be famous and wondering what happened to her. "I should go," Margaret said suddenly. She felt overwhelmed by all the attention. "Wait," Dr. Foster said. "Let me drive you somewhere safe. Do you have a place to stay tonight?" Margaret shook her head. She usually slept in the park or under bridges. "You can stay at my house tonight," Dr. Foster said. "We can figure out a better plan tomorrow." Margaret looked at Dr. Foster's kind face. She had not slept in a real bed in months. "Are you sure?" Margaret asked. "I'm sure," Dr. Foster said. "And tomorrow, we're going to help you get your life back." As Margaret walked out of the shopping center with Dr. Foster, she did not know that her videos were still spreading online. By morning, millions of people would know her story. Margaret woke up in a real bed for the first time in months. For a moment, she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. Dr. Foster had brought her home and given her a warm bed, clean clothes, and a hot shower. Dr. Foster was in the kitchen making breakfast when Margaret came downstairs. "Good morning," she said with a smile. "How did you sleep?" "Better than I have in a very long time," Margaret said. "Thank you so much for your kindness." "I have something to show you," Dr. Foster said, holding up her laptop. "Your videos from yesterday are everywhere online." Margaret sat down and looked at the computer screen. She could not believe what she saw. The video of her playing piano had been viewed 2 million times. 2 million people had watched her play. "Look at all these comments," Dr. Foster said, scrolling down the page. There were thousands of comments from people all over the world. "This woman made me cry," one person wrote from Germany. "I'm a professional musician and she plays better than me," wrote someone from Japan. "How can we help her?" asked someone from Canada. "She needs our support," wrote someone from Australia. Margaret read comment after comment. People were sharing their own stories too. Some had lost family members and said Margaret's music helped them feel better. Others said they were going through hard times and her music gave them hope. "There's more," Dr. Foster said. She showed Margaret news articles about her. "Homeless piano genius goes viral" was the headline in a big newspaper. "The mystery of Margaret Chen" was another headline. Margaret's phone number had been shared online by Dr. Foster, with Margaret's permission. The phone was ringing all morning. News reporters wanted to interview Margaret. Television shows wanted her to appear on their programs. Music companies wanted to offer her recording contracts. "I don't know what to do with all this attention," Margaret said. She felt overwhelmed. We'll take it slow, Dr. Foster said. But first, I think we should go back to the shopping center. I have a feeling there might be some surprises waiting for you there. When they arrived at the shopping center, Margaret gasped. There were flowers piled up around the piano. Dozens of bouquets from people who had seen the videos online. There were also bags of food, gift cards, and envelopes full of money. Frank, the security guard, was there, watching over everything. When he saw Margaret, he smiled big. I've been here since 6 in the morning, Frank said. People keep bringing things for you. Look at all this. Margaret walked closer to the piano. There were handwritten notes attached to many of the gifts. Thank you for sharing your beautiful music, one note said. Your playing touched my heart, said another. I hope this helps. You get back on your feet, read a third note. There was a letter from a little girl who had been in the crowd yesterday. Dear piano lady, it said in crayon. You made the most beautiful sounds I ever heard. My mommy says you don't have a home. You can come live with us if you want. Love, Emma, age 7. Margaret started crying as she read the notes. She had felt so alone for so long. Now she realized that her music had touched people's hearts. She was not alone anymore. Dr. Foster was counting the money in the envelopes. Margaret, she said with amazement. There's over $2,000 here. Margaret could not believe it. That was enough money for an apartment deposit and several months of rent. A news van pulled up outside the shopping center. A reporter and camera crew got out. Frank went to talk to them. They want to interview you, Frank told Margaret. But only if you want to. I can tell them to go away if you're not ready. Margaret thought about it. Part of her wanted to hide, but another part of her felt like she owed something to all the people who had been so kind to her. I'll talk to them, Margaret said. The reporter was a nice woman named Sarah. She asked Margaret gentle questions about what had happened to her and how she ended up homeless. Margaret told her story on camera. She talked about David's death and how she lost everything. She talked about how music was the only thing that kept her going. What do you want people to know? Sarah asked. I want them to know that homeless people are still human beings, Margaret said. We all have stories. We all have talents. Sometimes we just need someone to give us a chance. The interview was aired on the local news that evening. It was also posted online and shared thousands of times. After the interview, Margaret sat at the piano again. A crowd gathered quickly. Word had spread that she would be playing. This time the crowd was even bigger than yesterday. Over 200 people came to listen. Some had driven from other cities after seeing the videos online. Margaret played for an hour. She played classical pieces, but she also played some songs that people knew. When she played Amazing Grace, the whole crowd sang along quietly. When she finished playing, the crowd gave her a standing ovation that lasted 5 minutes. People were crying and cheering at the same time. A man in a suit approached Margaret. Ms. Chen, he said, I'm the director of the City Symphony Orchestra. We would be honored to have you perform with us next month. We've already sold out our regular season, but we'd like to add a special concert just for you. Margaret was shocked. You want me to perform with your orchestra? It would be our privilege, the director said. Your music yesterday reminded us why we became musicians in the first place. A woman who owned several restaurants in the city also approached Margaret. I'd like to offer you a job, she said. Not playing piano unless you want to. I need a manager for one of my restaurants. The job comes with an apartment above the restaurant. Margaret felt overwhelmed by all the offers. People wanted to help her in so many ways. Dr. Foster took Margaret aside. You don't have to decide everything right now, she said. But I do have an offer too. The university wants you to teach master classes to our music students. It's a part-time job that pays well, and it would let you keep performing too. Margaret looked around at all the people who wanted to help her. Yesterday she had nothing. Today she had more opportunities than she could handle. I want to say yes to all of it, Margaret said. But I also want to do something to help other people like me. What do you mean? Dr. Foster asked. I want to start a program to bring music to homeless shelters, Margaret said. Music saved my life. Maybe it can help save other people's lives too. Dr. Foster smiled. I think that's a wonderful idea. The university would be happy to support something like that. That evening, Margaret went back to Dr. Foster's house. She sat at Dr. Foster's piano and played quietly. But this time she was not playing for food or money. She was playing because music was who she was. As she played, Margaret thought about David. She knew he would be proud of her. She had found her way back to the music. And more importantly, She had found her way back to herself. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and new opportunities. But tonight, Margaret Chen was exactly where she belonged, at a piano making beautiful music. 3 months later, Margaret stood behind the curtain at the Grand Concert Hall. She was wearing a beautiful black dress that Dr. Foster had helped her pick out. Her hair was clean and styled. Her hands were soft again, but most importantly, Margaret felt like herself again. Tonight was her comeback concert. All the tickets had sold out in 2 hours. People from all over the country had bought tickets to hear Margaret Chen play piano again. Margaret peeked through the curtain at the audience. The concert hall held 2,000 people and every seat was full. In the front row, she could see Dr. Foster smiling at her. Next to Dr. Foster sat Frank, the security guard, wearing his best suit. A few rows back, Margaret spotted the teenagers who had first recorded her. Jake and Emma and their friends had all come to the concert. They looked excited and proud. Margaret had invited them personally. She wanted them to know that she did not hold any bad feelings about what happened that first day. Everyone deserved a second chance. The concert hall manager walked over to Margaret. 5 minutes until showtime, he said. Are you ready? Margaret nodded. She was nervous, but it was a good kind of nervous. She was excited to share her music with all these people who had supported her. Over the past 3 months, Margaret's life had completely changed. She was teaching music classes at the university 3 days a week. The students loved her. She was also performing with different orchestras around the country. But the thing Margaret was most proud of was her new program called Music for All. Every week, she went to homeless shelters and played piano for the people there. She also taught simple piano lessons to anyone who wanted to learn. The program had grown quickly. Other musicians had volunteered to help. Dr. Foster's university had donated old instruments. Local businesses had given money to support the program. Margaret had seen amazing things happen through the program. A homeless veteran had learned to play guitar and was now playing at local coffee shops for tips. A teenage girl who lived in a shelter had discovered she could sing beautifully and was now in the school choir. Music was healing people, just like it had healed Margaret. The lights in the concert hall dimmed. Margaret took a deep breath and walked onto the stage. The audience erupted in applause before she even sat down at the piano. Margaret sat at the beautiful grand piano in the center of the stage. She looked out at all the faces in the audience. These people had saved her life with their kindness and support. Thank you, Margaret said into the microphone. 3 months ago, I was playing piano in a shopping center, hoping someone would give me enough money for a meal. Tonight, I'm here with all of you, sharing the music that has always been my life. The audience clapped again. I want to start tonight with the same piece I played that first day. Margaret continued, Chopin's Ballad No. 1. But tonight, I'm not playing for food. I'm playing for joy. I'm playing for hope. I'm playing for everyone who has ever felt lost and found their way back home. Margaret put her hands on the keys and began to play. The music filled the concert hall like magic. Every note was perfect. Every phrase was full of emotion. As she played, Margaret thought about her journey. She thought about David and how much she missed him. She thought about the dark months when she had nothing. She thought about the kindness of strangers who had lifted her up. The audience listened in complete silence. Many people had tears in their eyes. They were not just hearing beautiful music. They were hearing a story of loss and hope and love. When Margaret finished the Chopin piece, the applause was thunderous. People stood up and cheered for several minutes. Margaret played 5 more pieces that night. Each one told a different part of her story. She played the Rachmaninoff piece that had made the crowd gather that first day. She played a piece by Mozart that reminded her of happier times with David. She played a piece she had written herself about finding hope in dark places. For her final piece, Margaret played Amazing Grace. Just like that day at the shopping center, people in the audience began to sing along softly. 2,000 voices joined together in harmony. When the concert ended, the audience gave Margaret a standing ovation that lasted 10 minutes. People were crying and cheering and calling for more music. Margaret took her bow and looked out at all the faces. In the back of the concert hall, she saw something that made her heart full. There were 30 people from the homeless shelters where she taught music. The concert hall had given them free tickets so they could come. After the concert, there was a reception. People lined up to meet Margaret and tell her how her music had affected them. Jake, the teenager who had first recorded her, waited in line with his parents. When it was his turn to meet Margaret, he looked nervous. "Ms. Chen," he said, "I wanted to say thank you. Making that video, even though I was mean at first, it changed my whole life. I've been volunteering at homeless shelters because of what you taught me about not judging people." Margaret smiled and hugged Jake. "You helped save my life that day," she said. "Your video brought me back to the world." Emma, the teenage girl who had recorded Margaret playing Rachmaninoff, was there with her family too. "I'm taking piano lessons now because of you," Emma told Margaret. "I want to play music that makes people feel the way your music makes me feel." Frank, the security guard, came over with his adult daughter. "Ms. Chen," he said, "I wanted you to meet my daughter Lisa. She's a social worker now, and she says you inspired her to work with homeless people." Dr. Foster approached Margaret with a big smile. "I have some news," she said. "A documentary company wants to make a movie about your story, and a publisher wants you to write a book about your experience." Margaret felt overwhelmed by all the opportunities. "I don't know if I'm ready for all that," she said. "You don't have to decide tonight," Dr. Foster said. "But I think your story could help a lot of people." Later that evening, Margaret went back to her new apartment. It was small but comfortable. She had her own piano now, a gift from the people who had seen her first video. Margaret sat at her piano and played quietly. She played for David wherever he was. She played for all the homeless people who were still looking for their way home. She played for everyone who had ever felt lost and alone. As she played, Margaret realized that her life was better now than it had ever been before. Not because she was famous again or because she had money again. It was better because she understood what really mattered. Music mattered. Kindness mattered. Hope mattered. And everyone, no matter what they looked like or where they lived, deserved to be treated with dignity and respect. Margaret had learned that sometimes you have to lose everything to find out who you really are. Sometimes you have to fall all the way down before you can learn to fly. She thought about the sign she had carried that first day. "We'll play piano for food." Now she had a different sign in her heart. "We'll play piano for hope." Margaret played until late into the night. Outside her window, the city was quiet, but inside her apartment, beautiful music filled the air. And for the first time in a very long time, Margaret Chen was exactly where she belonged. The homeless woman who had been mocked for asking to play piano for food had become something greater than she ever imagined. She had become proof that music could heal, that kindness could save lives, and that it was never too late for a second chance. Margaret's story had reminded the world of something important. Every person has value, every person has gifts to share, and sometimes the most beautiful music comes from the most broken hearts. As Margaret finally went to bed that night, she smiled. Tomorrow she would teach her music students. Tomorrow she would visit the homeless shelters. Tomorrow she would keep sharing the gift that had saved her life. Music had brought Margaret home, and now she would spend the rest of her life helping music bring other people home too.